Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast to help you cruise a little smarter. And I'd like to welcome back to the show all the way down in Florida. How you doing today, Christy? It's been a long time since I've seen you.
I mean, it hasn't been that long, but I'm well, Steve. How are you?
Not too bad. If anybody is in Florida before the Run Disney weekends, if you need to get your carbo load on, I recommend Chez Pudic. It was a wonderful, wonderful dinner down there.
It's very nice, but yeah. that is an invite for you, Steve.
You're gonna have people.
I am the least hostessy person on the planet. I cannot host. I get nervous about it. For you, it wasn't a big deal because, frankly, you're like a brother I didn't know I wanted. And so it's easy to have you over for dinner. But no, I am not a very good host. One of our guests came over once, and I'm certain I forgot to offer her something to drink or even use the bathroom because I just am not good at it.
Well, it was in the reviews, I think. I saw that in the reviews. It was a 1-star. She wasn't able to use the bathroom. So, but Dave was an amazing host, amazing cook. So, well, let's turn to our show today. But before we do that, we're going to do something different that we never have done before. And that is actually read some of the reviews. We always ask people to give us reviews because that helps us get a little bit better known in the Disney podcast cruising community and everything like that. That just helps people find the show when they're searching for Disney cruising content. And we appreciate each and every one of you who've done that. And Christy, you've got one of our reviews.
Yeah, so we just received one last week, and we're going to go through, I'm going to sort of go backwards and read them. And if you guys need any help with figuring out how to leave us a review, reach out to me and I can direct you. But thank you to David, who said, I love this podcast. The hosts are great, and they are seasoned fans of cruising and Disney Cruise Line. They usually have guests talking about their experiences with different itineraries, travel to and from the port, or they talk about their own experiences. It's great to research or get ideas for future cruises or reminisce about cruises you've taken. One of the hosts is gluten-free, and they talk about this, which is great info for those in the gluten-free family, for those with gluten-free family members. Christy is a travel agent. Oh, I didn't even know what we were making a shout out for that. And a wealth of Disney travel knowledge. I definitely recommend this podcast. So you don't have to make them all that long. We truly appreciate it, though. That was great. So thank you, David.
Yeah, that was awesome. Do you have another one? Do you want to read?
Sure. This one is from Ms. J. Orenz. I love listening to Steve, Christy, Nova, and the guests talk about their experiences with DCL. The hosts are great and have a wealth of information about Disney in general, Run Disney, Alani, etc. I've tuned in to so many episodes. I feel like I'm hanging out with good friends. I love that so much. Just chatting with one another. I highly recommend listening if you're planning a Disney trip or just want to listen to a Disney podcast.
I love that. So thank you, each and every one of you who've written in and given us a review lately. Once again, we really do appreciate it. But it takes I can't find the right word. So it takes a village to raise a podcast, I guess, and something like that. And we've got 2 guests on today, which we're excited to bring on to talk about a special cruise that they just got off of. One of them is a huge Patreon supporter, part of our Patreon crew. And then the other one, Amber, that's Tim. And then we'll bring on just a second. And then Amber has been doing our Instagram forever. She's hilarious. I love everything that she puts on there. I'm finally finding Instagram in my late 90s here. That's pretty exciting.
I know you've been doing stuff on Instagram, Steve.
Yeah, social media site. But let's bring on 2 just amazing people that have really been a huge part of our podcast. Welcome to the show, Tim, and also Amber. How are you guys doing today?
Great. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Christy.
Thank both of you for all that you guys have done to help us kind of continue this podcast and bring about all the different trip knowledge that you guys share with all the rest of our listeners as well to, as we say, cruise a little smarter. Christy.
And let me just point out to everybody who may not know, who may not be one of the original listeners, that Amber is part of the reason we have this Subway situation going with Steve, because Amber and Steve compared Subway to Palo the one day and how they just love their Subway. And so it has never died. In fact, one of our Patreons just posted last night something about Vancouver, and she made comments about how there is a Subway conveniently located so that Steve and Amber can eat there on their future visits.
Spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about Bermuda today, and there was no Subway in Bermuda.
Oh.
So maybe 4.5 stars out of 5 for Bermuda.
It just went down a notch, I guess, in my bucket list of things to do is cruising to Bermuda. The sad part is I've actually eaten at that Subway in Vancouver. So,
okay, of course you have. See?
Well, let's turn to this week's episode, which we're going to talk about Bermuda, a place which I have never been. Have you been there, Christy?
I haven't. I want to for sure.
Yeah, it's one of those ones that I think that when you start delving into other podcasts that talk about cruising, and whether it's with Disney or whatever else, Bermuda is like a hot topic of places that people really want to go to. And in the past, Disney's only really sailed, I think, to Bermuda out of New York, where they put it on in the winter. And this time it sailed out of Port Canaveral. But let's just start with you, Tim. Could you give us a little bit of your cruising background, some of the cruises you've been on, and then who cruised with you on this one?
So, kind of like a lot of people, it seems like that my wife had done a couple cruises before we met, and she was always big about, oh, we need to do this. I was like, no, not really my thing. And things worked out so that we could do about 15 years ago, or more than that. Finances worked out that we could do a cruise, and our son was the right age at that point. I said, okay, we'll do one, but with our son, let's make it a Disney one just to do it. And well, that turned out to be fantastic, and I liked it a lot more than I thought. And a couple of years later, we got to do another one with him. And then the decade passes, and the two of us start cruising with just the two of us. And we've done now 7 cruises with just the two of us, all Disney, in the last couple of years. This was cruise number 9.
So, Amber, who I know that you've been on the show a lot of different times before, and people will recognize your voice. And thank you so much for coming back and talking some cruising with us. Give us a little bit about your cruising background and who went with you this time.
I've honestly lost track of how many cruises I've been on. I'm going to say this was like 16 or 17 for Disney. And it was me, my husband, and my daughter, who was in 2nd grade, went on this cruise.
So this one went to Bermuda. It was a 8-night sailing out of Port Canaveral. You guys leave Port Canaveral, have 2 sea days, those glorious sea days on board the Disney Fantasy. I love that ship. 2 days in Bermuda, which seems like that's like what cruise lines do, is they spend the night in Bermuda so that you really get to maximize your time on the island. A day at sea, then you come back to Nassau and Castaway. Tim, why did you take this cruise? What was it about Bermuda that you wanted to go and see?
Oh, it was just we'd never been there before. And the fact it was an overnight at the port, never had done that. So, and talking with a lot of people on the cruise, that seemed to be the common theme, was no one had been to Bermuda, didn't know what to expect. And the idea of spending 2 days in a port, an overnight where you could go out in the evening or do whatever was, seemed very unique and appealing.
And Amber, how about you? What was it about Bermuda that kind of spurred your guys' interest to go there?
I mean, same thing with Tim, never been there, but also this was out of Port Canaveral. I live pretty close to Christie, so I don't have to fly to New York to go to Bermuda. Also, the fact that this was an 8-night cruise and it left on a Saturday and came back on a Sunday. So I could do an 8-night cruise and only take a week off of work. So this was like a slam dunk for me. It was kind of just life-wise, it worked out perfectly.
And Christy, I want to put you on the spot. Working with clients in the past, going to Bermuda, what is it about Bermuda that's been excited about that? Or what have you heard about Bermuda?
Well, I've heard that they have amazing beaches. Frankly, it's sort of like a white whale of cruising, right? That it's just not something that everybody can get to. There's not a lot of cruise itineraries that go there. And so it's unique and different, and people are looking for that unique and different experience.
So first time going to Bermuda for both of you guys, what were some of the resources that you guys used to plan this trip, to kind of figure out what you wanted to do, what you wanted to see once you got there? Tim, why don't you go first?
Well, it's kind of embarrassing to almost say very little planning involved. It was, even though we had booked this opening day like a year and a half ago, and we had done a couple of cruises in the meantime, and it was just sort of, I guess I kind of goes with the assumption, it'll be similar to Bahamas or Caribbean or any of the others, and we'll just go along with it. Since it's just the two of us, we generally book excursions directly through Disney. The extra cost always seems to be worth the, that little convenience fee for just the two of us to do it. And, to be honest, an 8-night cruise, we're as much excited about the sea days as the islands itself. So I kind of was like, oh, well, we'll do some things. And we booked 3 excursions through Disney. And that was really all the planning. They were just ones that sounded good and were available online. So it's, very little planning, or forethought went into it, but it all worked out great.
How about you, Amber?
I did extensive YouTube watching, just constant YouTube watching, top 10 things to do in Bermuda, top 10 free things to do in Bermuda. So I had a huge list of things we wanted to do. And then I had 2 friends that had been there before. So they gave me some ideas as well. And none of that worked out for me. So spoiler alert, we'll talk about that later. But yeah, I found a couple actually great cruise YouTube channels that I now watch on a consistent basis, just based on my Bermuda research.
You can give them here for others as well. Do you know what they're called?
One of them is Life Well Cruised, I believe. And she's quite popular. I think she has over 100,000 views. She does some really great YouTube videos. And the other one, I can't remember the specific name, but it's something about jelly beans. I'll have to look it up. They're not as big as the other one. She gets great to the point, which I like on her YouTube videos. And she has a great speaking voice, this woman, whoever this woman is. So those are the 2 YouTube channels I found were very helpful to me.
I'm totally drawing a blank here. Don't you use was it Instagram, or what's the other one that you used?
Pinterest.
Pinterest. Yeah. Did Pinterest help you at all with Bermuda?
Yeah, a little bit, but I really just dove right into YouTube because I wanted to see what I was looking at video wise.
Okay. So a lot of different resources out there. Christy, what are some of the resources you used or you point your clients towards? You don't like that question. Okay. We'll slash that one. I'll put you on the spot. Welcome to How the Sausage is Made, Tim. It always sounds a lot better once it comes out. So,
but you'd miss her expression was really the key part of that.
All right. So we've planned our trip. We're excited. We're ready to go. Let's jump right on to the ship. You had 2 days at sea. So you have like that first half day when you first get on, and then you had a couple of sea days. So you are knee deep in the fantasy. What kind of stuff events, activities, what did you spend your time doing those first couple of days on the ship? Amber, do you want to start with you?
I am one of those people that I think I'm the opposite of Tim. I don't really do sea days very well, but we did the, what's it called, where you got the mystery thing and you got the piece of paper and you hold it up.
Midship Detective Agency.
We did both of those. I specifically did not watch Wakanda Forever on Disney Plus, so I could watch it on the ship. I also specifically did not go to the movies to see Ant-Man #3. So we watched that on our sea days. We met a ton of characters this cruise. We went to the DVC, all the DVC parties. And the first party, they had these fancy blue sparkly drinks. One for adults and one for my daughter. So that was a big deal because she got to have some fancy blue sparkly drink. Besides that, it was pretty chilly. I don't know where Tim's from, but I'm from Florida and we were cruising north. So there was not any swimming going on for me personally those first 2 days. So it was a lot of hanging out, reading books, getting antsy pants for Bermuda the next day.
Does your daughter go to the kids club?
She does. She didn't do it very much this cruise. I don't know why. It was kind of weird. She only went 2 times.
Oh my God.
Out of 8 days. Yeah, it was very unusual. I don't know. I'm scared if she's growing out of it, which devastates me. I don't know. We'll see what's going on for the next cruise.
I just is there a right way to do a sea day? It sounds like you had a pretty good time. So
I don't know. I struggle with doing nothing. So I'm always trying to do stuff. And then my family's like, let's not do stuff. And then we just go our own ways and do our own things.
Did you do trivia?
A little bit, not too much. I feel like these trivias must be on YouTube somewhere because people seem to know all the answers. But we did a few and they're always fun.
So no medal this time?
No medals this time, not even close.
So you mentioned going to the movies, and I know we have a lot of newer cruiser listeners these days. And so I just want to insert really quick. If there is a new release for a movie, Disney will play it. Well, and old releases, but Disney will play it in the ship's movie theater or in the main theater sometimes. And there's no additional cost for that. So if you want to buy popcorn, there is an additional cost. You can actually bring your popcorn bucket if you have one from Walt Disney World, or Disneyland, or you can buy one on the ship that you can refill. So for an 8-night cruise, it might make sense to do that if you want to have popcorn snacks. Obviously, there's tons of food, but if you want just that snack, you can go to the movies and there's no charge for that. It is included, which is pretty cool.
And how about you, Tim? How did you guys fill your 2 days at sea? And what were some of the things you were excited about getting back on the fantasy and doing?
Well, it was the first we've been on the fantasy since 2019, pre-shutdown. So that was nice to be on, and everything being back to normal was great because the couple we'd done obviously had restrictions all the time. It was nice to feel back into the groove of things, pre-pandemic. Trying to figure out what we did, it turned out to be, I was making a list like, we really didn't do much. And I'm sort of like Amber and always used to be wanting to do stuff and all that. And my wife in cruising has really helped me learn just to relax and do nothing and really enjoy that. On our first day, even the first day right after before we left port, we did pedicures together at the spa, which was a lot of fun. My wife did a massage, I think, on day 3 with just herself. So we used the spa more than we ever had previously. In the evening, especially, we try to hit a lounge that has some live music each night, just a singer or a pianist. We're always try to hit a different lounge. We're not heavy drinkers, so I drink more on a cruise than, any other time where I'll have a drink a day. On the second sea day, they had a D23 at Sea show. And so I attended that, and that was kind of neat seeing basically previews and stuff on the big screen. And that was in the Buena Vista Theater. I did see Ant-Man and the Wasp as well. That was the one movie I waited not to see. And so went to see that. I think it was the third sea day we had the Jack Diaper Dash that we had never seen before. And that was a blast. Really enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun to watch all the baby racing.
Yeah, tell the listeners who might not be aware what it is.
It's legalized baby racing at sea. They only babies that crawl. They gave strict warnings that if they stand up and even take their first step, they will be disqualified. So it was a lot of fun to watch. We actually happened to be chatting with the team that the baby that won beforehand, and his parents. It was his first birthday that day. The off-track betting was hot going on there for all the different babies, but that was a lot of fun. And I think that was pretty much it. I mean, it said there was a lot of relaxing going up to the Serenity Falls at the front of the ship there. We're from Colorado, so the cooler temperature didn't bother us. And enjoy the weather, but it definitely was a lot cooler, and you could notice it as we were headed north. So I do appreciate that. So that was kind of a different experience headed north up there.
So a couple questions for both of you guys. How are the seas? You said it was a little bit colder, because one of the things I know that people have sailed out of New York, sometimes the seas can be pretty rough those first 2 days and cold until you get down to Bermuda. How was it coming from Port Canaveral?
I thought it was fine. It was a lot smoother than I expected. I was wondering the same thing, but it seemed to be, even on when we went through some storms, the seas themselves were good.
Okay. And then you guys are on an 8-day cruise, and I know that I'm pretty sure that they had this, but they have brought back the DCL member celebration. So if you're gold or platinum and above, now pearl, did you guys go to that? Did they have that? Did you guys go to it?
They did have it, and we didn't go, and I kind of regret it. It sounded like it was a pretty good time. Did you go, Amber?
I did. It was on the second part of the sea days. So like after Bermuda, it was like, hey, come to the Walt Disney Theater and you'll get a behind the scenes sneak preview of Aladdin, which we had seen like 3 or 4 days earlier. So number one, it started 30 minutes late. So that was kind of a bummer because I had like dragged my family there and they're like, we're just sitting here. So besides starting literally a half hour late, they brought out the actor who plays Aladdin, who was dressed in like regular clothes. He wasn't blue or anything. They showed a time-lapse video of him putting the makeup on, which takes 2 hours apparently. And then they showed a scene where they're flying on the magic carpet. So Aladdin's not involved in that. Aladdin and Jasmine are on the magic carpet. They do it legit. And then they kind of bring on the lights and turn on the background sounds. And they do the scene again. So you can see the contraption of the carpet flying with them. And it was kind of like, let's thank all these people behind the scenes who are making this happen, because they were all on stage, like doing their jobs. But in view of everybody versus behind the scenes. And they also gave us fruity drinks as well for the event. So it's pretty cool. It wasn't like the greatest thing of all time, but it was different, which is always good.
When we did it in Greece, so what we're talking about is if on 8 night or longer, if they have it, that'll be kind of a member celebration for people who've reached gold or platinum. And when we did it in Greece, Christy, I don't know if you remember, but we went to that and I don't know if they gave free drinks, but they kind of gave a background video of the Wish because the Wish hadn't come out yet. So that was kind of neat to see. But a lot of it was stuff that I think had already been out on social media, right?
Yeah. So it was all basically stuff that was on social media. And like that they already released, but they were like, you're going to get information. And we were just waiting. But I also do think that they had champagne and beer as, and then something non-alcoholic as a choice. And then they did have a character. So no character, Amber shaking her head.
Yeah, no, it was just the real people on stage were kind of the stars of the show.
Which is kind of cool to do something different, like a behind the scenes.
We had done that on The Wonder over a year ago, and it was a similar thing, only done with Frozen, and really liked the whole behind the scenes with the technical aspects of it.
I think it's cool that they give a nod to the frequent cruisers, I guess, to be able to do something like that. So I appreciate that, although I totally get the 30 minutes late. Your family's like, looking at me, why are we sitting here?
So this is not going to be our traditional trip report. We have obviously the 2 guests, so that makes it non-traditional. And I think the star of the show is the Bermuda cruise, or in the port of Bermuda. So let's dive right into Bermuda. Tim, you discussed that you had excursions booked through Disney. So let's start with you. What did you book? And is that what you ended up doing? And how did it go?
So yeah, we booked 3 excursions. They all happened. The first one was, and luckily the weather cooperated for what we ordered, the days that we had booked them. First day in Bermuda, we did the Horseshoe Bay beach transfer. You could have done the same thing through buying, just getting a taxi or something like that. But once again, going for the convenience fee of going through Disney made it worthwhile for us. And it definitely did in this case. It was very straightforward. The beach was probably the best beach I've ever been at, Horseshoe Bay. The sand was absolutely perfect. There were all these rock outcroppings that you kind of see in either the Pacific Northwest or the Northeast. But the water was comfortable. We, walked in the water, didn't really go swimming to her. The waves were legit. They were definitely breaking. So we didn't go out beyond that, and just relaxed on the beach for a couple of hours and walked around there, but it was just beautiful. There was one other cruise ship in port, Norwegian, I believe, and they had come from Boston and were there for 3 days. And so we got talking with a bunch of people from that cruise on the beach and their experiences. There was apparently a near mutiny on the ship when they didn't show the Boston Bruins hockey game the night before on the ship, but arranged for, all these people from Boston wanting to watch the, first round of the Stanley Cup. But the ship arranged for showing at a bar right across from there. They said, so it was a mass exodus off the ship to go to the bar. So that was kind of fun talking with them. So that worked out really good. And then the other big plan was to do a sunset catamaran ride that evening, because you never get to go out at night on any of these Disney cruises. So it was the sunset catamaran swizzle cruise, 18 and older. The rum swizzles was flowing freely on the ship. A storm was moving in, so the sunset itself was kind of a bust because clouds went overhead, but we still got service sunset. But just sailing around the Fantasy, seeing it all lit up, really was a lot of fun. And just, as I said, being on a small ship out there at night was a big highlight for that. Day 2, the weather turned a little bit rainy and cloudier. And luckily for that one, we had this Famous Homes and Hideaway cruise booked. That was just a boat tour around the island that showing off some of the famous homes, like where Mark Twain lived, John Lennon wrote Double Fantasy, where Michael Douglas and Catherine Zeta-Jones live. And, the boat was enclosed, so we were out of the weather. So that worked out. We lucked out doing them in that order. but they were great.
Can we go back to the beach just real quick? What all did that include too, besides going down to the beach? Did you guys get chairs? Was there food included, or were there like places where you could get food while you're on the beach?
No, the tour itself was just the transport down there. That's why I said you could have gotten a taxi and done the same thing. They had umbrellas, chairs, whatever to rent there at the beach, which we took advantage of. They had food and drinks there for purchase. Once again, this is kind of the nice thing with whole Bermuda was very clean, very well maintained. They had a legitimate bathroom and changing area right there to get ready for. So said that the beach tour was basically the shuttle ride down there, and that was it. And that worked out fine for us. And luckily said they had chairs and umbrellas available to rent there, and drinks and basic food if you so desired.
Christy, when those boat tours go by your house in Bermuda like that, do you keep the shutters down? Is that so that people?
In my dreams.
There were some very nice homes there.
Did they have boats outside too? Did they have like docks, or was it just mostly homes along?
Yeah, they rolled right up and docked.
Well, no, I mean, but like when you go to Miami, or Fort Lauderdale now, I mean, it's amazing the boats that you get to see also.
Not near as many as I expected. And that's kind of the whole, I think a lot of these homes are only lived in for a couple of months a year. So all the boats were in the main dock area, and there weren't many out at all during our whole time we were there. Not like what you normally see in the Caribbean or Bahamas, where you're just seeing all sorts of tours going out. That first morning, there were lots of taxis and shuttles available outside the ship ready to go, but it was a lot quieter than I expected, which was nice.
Did you eat in Bermuda for dinner or even for lunch at the beach, or did you eat on the ship?
We ate on the ship. We ended up eating on the ship. We had drinks or something on the beach, and it worked out. We had a couple hours between the two, and we just did room service that afternoon before going out. One of the things, they obviously had nothing big planned for the main dining rooms for that evening because most people were off the ship. One of the other surprising things is we were getting off to do the sunset cruise. We saw a group of people getting back on the ship, obviously dressed to go out for the evening type thing, and making comments like, at least in that port area, everything was closing at 5. So if you're making plans for going there, look at restaurants, maybe in Hamilton, the main city, there things were open later. But you could tell there were a couple of people disappointed that immediately off the ship, everything was closing down pretty early.
Okay. Sorry, I was going to say, you mentioned maybe going to Hamilton or St. George's, which are two of the big cities, because I did a lot of bus research and ferry research, and a lot of that stuff also stops early. Uh-huh. Now, I didn't use any of that stuff, so I can't, don't quote me on that. But yeah, rumor has it like ferry stop at 6 or something like that. So if you're over in Hamilton and you miss the ferry, you're just stuck getting a very expensive taxi back to the port.
Well, let's turn to you, Amber. What did you guys have planned for your 2 days in Bermuda, and how did it work out?
So my big plan...
She spoiled it by saying her plans didn't work out.
So my big plan was to get a 2-day bus pass, which also includes ferries, because Bermuda is kind of like a sea. So you can obviously bus around the sea, which is like an hour, or you can like taxi to get from one side to the other, if that makes sense. So we waited in this huge line to get a bus ticket, and they only take cash, which I had none. So I was like, well, I have no backup plan whatsoever. Like, I cruised all this way to Bermuda, and I'm literally going to do nothing.
They have ATMs on the ship, and you can get money.
They don't have ATMs on the ship.
Do they not anymore?
They don't, because we walked back the ship, but I was just like, I went up to guest services, and I'm like, hey, I asked right away, is there an ATM? And they said no. And I'm like, I need some cash. And it was just like a statement. And they're like, I'm like, yeah, that wasn't really a question.
So that you couldn't buy cash from them either?
We couldn't buy we had to write a check or something. I'm like, well, I don't have a check. So I'm like, forget it. And they did have an ATM machine there, but like, of course, our debit cards, we don't have a debit card. Our ATM cards were expired. Like, it was just a big mess. So I was like mildly devastated, and I didn't know what to do. So my husband went back to the ship. He didn't want to just aimlessly walk around. I think he was just really mad. So he actually went back to the ship to relax, and he actually bought an excursion for the next day. So that kind of like saved our butts. But on the first day, my daughter and I actually, it was awesome. We just started walking because I heard that Sea Glass Beach was a short walk from the port, quote unquote. So I'm like, is this miles? What is this? But we ended up finding it. And actually on the way, so obviously if you've been to Bermuda, this will make sense. But if not, you can pretend it makes sense. You just start walking, you cross over these two small pedestrian bridges. And then the ocean's right next to you. And we found these little like trails down there. So we just spent the day taking these random trails down to these random beaches with nobody. There's no one there. And I call it a beach. It's just rocks, sharp, pointy rocks that will hurt you. But yeah, so we just kept like exploring these rocks, walking in the water. And then we found Sea Glass Beach after a little hike through the forest. And it was amazing. When you picture Sea Glass Beach, you might be like, there's sea glass here and sea glass there. No, it was covered in sea glass. And I'll post some pictures on Instagram. It's just covered, like a million pieces of sea glass. It was crazy. Oh my God,
I'm so jealous.
It was crazy. And again, nobody was there. And I'm like, why is nobody here? Like, this is insane.
Well, I did hear you say you walked through a forest. So maybe that's why.
Well, then we found there is like a normal way to get to it, like from a road, but we were just kind of walking around. So it was amazing. So we got severe sunburns because we are irresponsible and we were up north. So actually it turned out to be pretty awesome. Now, if we hadn't booked this excursion for the next day, I would have been kind of bummed that we went to Bermuda and just walked a mile off the port and did some sea glass. But I'll definitely post some stuff on Instagram because these were 2 free things in Bermuda that were like super high quality things to do. So day 2, I mentioned my husband booked an excursion. Christy, you know me, I will get on a cruise and spend no money whatsoever.
Right.
And get off the cruise. And
besides tips,
which I usually prepay, and my husband will buy like 5 beers, and that's what we do. So when he bought this excursion, that was $199 a person.
Ooh, that must have given you a little heart attack.
Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh. But it turned out to be the exact excursion I was going to book on my own for the same price. So I'm like, awesome. And it was amazing. I would say if you want to do it by your own, it was called Bermuda Hidden Gems. Like Tim said, it was raining this day, but it worked out perfect because the excursion was, number 1, hiking through a forest. So like it wasn't really raining because we were like trees everywhere. Number 2, it was going into some caves. So it wasn't raining in the caves. And these caves were terrifying. Like they were small caves. And we've all seen that movie, the horror movie with the girls in the cave, and there were those creatures. I'll have to Google what it's called. But number 3, we got to swim in a cave. That was awesome and freezing. Number 4, we got to jump off a cliff into some water.
So did you all do it?
I did. And my daughter did, and she hated every second of it. My husband didn't do it. It was terrifying. So again, it's raining, but we're like jumping in off a cliff, so it's fine. They fed us some food, and then we went to a beach, and that was pretty pointless because, again, it was raining. But we're all wet anyways from jumping off the cliff. So we just kind of like walked around the beach and got wet. They actually gave us umbrellas, which was pretty nice.
Like umbrellas to sit under or umbrellas to hold?
Like a holding umbrella.
Okay.
The point of this umbrella was it's normally super hot. So you want this umbrella, but it still kind of worked out perfectly. And then we drove back. So this was a 7-hour tour.
Woo.
It was our whole second day because the ship was leaving at like 3 p.m. So it was the whole, and just driving to this cave was an hour. So it was like a lot of driving and then again, hiking and caving, spelunking, as I should say, jumping off. So I was kind of bummed. I didn't go to Horseshoe Beach, which is like the thing you do. There was also a ton of like things you're supposed to be doing in Bermuda that we didn't do. So
what are those things? Share for the class.
There was like an unfinished church that is apparently pretty amazing. There were a couple sea glass beaches, which I wanted to find. There's a lighthouse, which hiking up that sounded cool. There was a couple restaurants, which I wanted to check out. But yeah, this hidden gems excursion was awesome because like, where else am I going to go into a cave and like jump off a cliff safely? Probably never. It was worth the money, even though it like hurt me at first to spend all that money on the excursion.
I love the way you always point that your daughter's doing something and she hates every minute of it, but she keeps traveling with you.
I was like, listen, we didn't come all this way for you to like not jump off this cliff. She didn't swim in the cave because obviously it's like pitch black and super scary, and it was freezing. So I'm like, you're doing something here. You're jumping off this cliff. And when I say a cliff, it felt like I was jumping off the Empire State Building. But then when you watch the video my husband took, I'm like jumping into a bathtub. Like it was like 10 feet off the ground, but it just felt like the biggest jump of my life.
Like my zipline experience on my Wonder of the Seas cruise.
Your 4-second zip line of death there.
It was 9.8 seconds. Thank you very much.
It was just a little bit longer than Tron, huh? So, sorry.
Hey, I like Tron a lot.
I haven't been. I'm being sarcastic here. Tim, let's go back to you real quick. Was there anything else there afterwards, just talking to other people on the ship, that you heard that they did that maybe intrigued you if you go back to Bermuda again?
We didn't really talk to anyone that had done anything that unique. There was a 5-hour bus tour that we had tried to get on, but was sold out. I'm kind of glad, I think, that we didn't do it because it was a long time to be in for a bus tour and really very nice. But just doing like the shuttle to Horseshoe Bay Beach, we got to see a lot of the island. And then out on the different boats, we got to see the island from out there. I will say I was sort of expecting something like the Caribbean or the Bahamas. I was kind of hoping it would be Southern Caribbean, like the people being a lot lower here. But this was the most low-key place I have ever been as far as a tourist destination. There was no one out at shops begging you to come in. Even the tours, like the shuttle ride, the guy disappeared before I could give him a tip. The Sunset Cruise, they had a tip jar out, but never really asked for anything. And then the same thing kind of on the home cruise. The only thing they had begged for was good TripAdvisor reviews. So it was very non-pressure and going out just to explore. I think, Amber talking about cash only and all that is important, and to know when things run, but I would feel very comfortable going out exploring on my own there. Now that I've been there one time. So I think there's a lot of options. Definitely the beach was a highlight. The pink sands that they talk about were actually there. It was like, oh my God, you can see the pink, and just able to explore around on the beach was a lot of fun. I mean, Castaway might be my favorite place, but I think Horseshoe Bay Beach is now my favorite beach I've been to.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. Like, I don't think any of us would take a second grader and walk a mile in like Nassau or any of these ports. But there wasn't anybody trying to braid my hair or get me into a shop. And when we were exploring these random beaches, at some point we had to like walk under like a tunnel type thing. And I'm like, oh, there's going to be somebody in this tunnel, like, hanging out. And I didn't see anybody like bothering anybody. It just felt like super duper safe. It was pretty amazing.
Really good to know.
Shopping wise, what was the shopping? I know that maybe that wasn't like the focus for you guys, but what was kind of the shopping vibe for people that might be getting off the ship and doing that? Is it kind of the same stuff that you see like in Nassau and throughout the Caribbean, or was it kind of like some of the ports, like when you go to Norway, it's just kind of the stores that people are shopping in normally? Does that make sense? Like, instead of being so tourist focused, I guess, is it a lot of tourist focused shopping that you guys saw, or is it just kind of little stores that just the locals would be using as well?
I guess Amber could probably talk to this better than I can, but I really didn't see much at all available.
Yeah, it wasn't in your face. Like a lot of them, but right when you got off the ship, there was a little orange shuttle that took you, literally like 3 blocks. So it was just like more of a helpful thing. We were docked right by what was called Clock Tower Mall, But by mall, it was maybe like 10 stores indoors. And again, I was mostly I went in there to try to find some cash, not to like try to shop or anything. But it was very touristy. It was kind of straw market vibes, but way cleaner and more spread out and air conditioned. But yeah, the port itself was pretty small. There wasn't tons of shops. Although I will mention right by the port, there was a really awesome mini golf that we didn't do that people talk about a lot. There was a place called Snorkel Bay Beach, which again, I was going to maybe do because I had enough cash for that. I think it was $15 a person. I heard that's pretty awesome. The swimming with dolphins was right there. I believe there was also a museum right by the port. So there was a lot of stuff there, but it wasn't like flashy and touristy. You really had to know what you were looking for, if that makes sense.
So I've only done a port stop like that once. It was in St. Petersburg, Russia. And I kind of regret that we went back in the evening to the ship to eat. Personally, I think it would have been cool if we would have found some place to eat outside there. Did you guys have any thoughts on that at all? Or did people talk about any? I know you said the restaurants close to the ship are closing down. Did you have any thoughts about doing anything like that? And I know, Tim, you guys did that kind of evening sale. So that kind of took a place of that, I suppose.
It would have been nice to have found something. I didn't, so it looked like there was a nice bar right there. And I understand that that's where the Disney crew went that night. Afterwards, they arranged for everyone to go there and be able to hang out. I would have liked, by wondering if in Hamilton or one of the other major cities there would have been more options, but if there's no way to get between them, that would obviously put a damper on that, because the taxis, as Amber said, are kind of pricey. They warned or not warned, but telling us when they dropped us off at the beach was, if you want to go earlier or stay later, you can get a taxi, but it'll be like $30 back to the ship. So that was good to know. There's options there, but it's going to be kind of pricey.
One of the DVCAs on board actually mentioned there was a restaurant in port. She had been to Bermuda before. There was one restaurant in port that actually helped me with directions. I guess they have just the best fish sandwich she's ever had. And then in all my YouTube researching, apparently Bermuda is famous for a fish sandwich on raisin bread. So to me, that sounds kind of gross, but apparently that's like their thing. And I guess they're also known for the rum swizzle, which Tim mentioned, the dark and stormy, if I'm saying that correctly. And then also there's some like ginger beer. It's called something, but it's like super popular there. So again, if we would have gotten the bus pass for a credit card, I was going to try the raisin bread fish sandwich, but then with the super expensive excursion, they fed us. So we didn't have to go buy any authentic Bermuda food.
Don't feel bad about the money. I've done that so many times now that like because you're on the ship, for several days, and then you're like, you don't even think about having money with you. And I don't know how many times I've been out on excursions and I don't bring any cash with to give them tips afterwards. And sometimes they'll Venmo, which some people feel comfortable about doing. But we've been in the same situation kind of you have been, Amber, as well.
I don't know. I feel like, because I was chatting with the DVCAs on board, some of the DVC folks, and they were like shocked. Like I said, I watched a million YouTube videos and not one person mentioned they don't take credit cards. So I feel like maybe it's a new thing. Maybe I'm full of it. I don't know. But I'm just shocked that like nobody said that anywhere. I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to have to go back and report.
Yeah, for sure. I guess my experience with getting cash on board is trading maybe dollars for euros. So I already had cash to start, because they will sell you euros or whatever currency you need on board if you have something to give them. But I 100% in my past have gotten money out of their Chase ATM on a ship before. So apparently they just don't have that anymore, I guess, which is unfortunate. But I also think it's probably been 8 or 9 years since I've done that. Mostly because I don't think we ever have an ATM card either. Like, right? I have a couple that I have never once used and do not know where they're located. So there you go.
I'm thinking, Amber, you should have just got one of those like signs, those port adventure signs, and then just started your own tour and taken everybody along with, and then just got some tips from there and got some cash that way.
Yeah.
I know, because now I'm a professional with hiking through this mini jungle to the sea glass beach.
Chrissy, any other questions about Bermuda that you have?
I don't think so. I think this was informative. I know people have to go back to work, but I guess before we leave the cruise in general, is there anything else that was unique that you can think of for an 8-night cruise versus a regular 7-night, or anything else unique to share? I mean, I know we still have Nassau and Castaway, but obviously Bermuda was the point of the show. And
So one of the things I noticed that I never really experienced on the Disney cruise before is total lack of other ships out there, because you're headed north out into the ocean. And even like when we did Panama Canal, you're going along the coast. So you always see ships in the distance, whether they're shipping ships or other cruise ships. But at night, between, going out to or coming back from Bermuda, you didn't see anything. So that was kind of odd, just to, you're like, oh, we're really going out there. The other thing with Bermuda that both tours made a point of making a big deal about is tourism is their second biggest industry. So it isn't their bread and butter there. It's banking and insurance and stuff like that is where all the money comes from, that, companies have headquarters set up there that with no employees basically there. That's part of that whole low pressure thing, is they don't make, the tourism isn't their key thing like a lot of the other islands. So that was good. We would go back. We had two other couples sitting at our tables, and one booked the same excursion for a later this year, or same itinerary for later this year or next year. I can't remember when they did it. So everyone was really positive about the experience. And I definitely would go back to Bermuda as one of the few places that I would say, oh, yeah, we need to go back here at some point.
Oh, 100%. 100% would go back.
with cash this time.
Yes.
Before we finish up too, how many sailings do they have? Do you guys know? Is it just one more next year that they're adding to Bermuda, or do you guys know?
I think they have their regular New York ones. They have this one. I'm guessing, I would hope with the popularity of it, that it seemed to be really, everyone that was on the cruise was their first time doing it. And everyone seemed really excited that we talked with. So obviously they get most of their stuff. The other thing with Bermuda is the docks. There was one other ship there. So they said they can have two ships dock. There's an option for a third ship that could tender in people. So you're kind of limited right there on the number of it. And I think obviously out of Boston and New York is where they get most of their passengers from.
Well, with, the Treasure coming on and having so many ships now on the East Coast, they've got to find, and I think they're doing a better job, especially in Europe. I mean, Tim, I know that you've got an exciting sailing come on in 2024 where they're going to some different destinations that Disney has not been to or has not been to in a long time. So I think that they're really kind of mixing things up. I would think that they need to start doing some more things like this, like maybe going up to Bermuda, maybe venturing down into the Southern Caribbean a little bit more, especially with having that many ships. I mean, there's only so many people that want to sail and go to Nassau every time. So, and not picking on Nassau whatsoever. Just, I think they almost need to, don't you?
Even the Eastern Western switchback. I mean,
right.
Carnival, for whatever all of our opinions on Carnival might be, but they go to amazing ports. And there's a lot of good ports out there in the Caribbean, and there's so much more to see. And I feel like for sure Disney needs to take more advantage of that and not always take the easy route.
Yeah, we definitely would like to see. We've done one Southern, and that was one of our favorites, and would really be anxious to go back and do two Southern again.
Amber, having cruised so much, is there a port that you'd like to see Disney go to a little bit more besides Bermuda? Is there some place that you've been to that maybe most of us have not been to? Our family's only done the Southern. It's usually the Eastern, the Western, and tooled around the Bahamas. Is there some place that stands out to you?
I've been to is it Tortola? I always say it wrong. And I know that's in the Eastern vibes, I think, but it's not always there.
Right.
That's one of my favorites. And due to what Tim said, I've done one Southern, and it was 10 days because you got to hoof it on down there to get to those islands. So that was a long time. But yeah, you're right. Nassau, half the ship doesn't even get off anymore. And I don't know.
And now that Disney is going to have a larger ship and or just more of a presence in Fort Lauderdale starting next year, Celebrity or Carnival, back to Carnival, I don't know where this Carnival chats come from all of a sudden, but they do an alternating 6-night, 8-night where they'll go from Fort Lauderdale on an 8-night. They can make it all the way to Curacao in Aruba. And it's not like they have to go a million miles an hour to get there, right? And then they'll do a 6-night to do like a Western. So Disney really can use that port and alternate and do some really cool itineraries where they can get pretty far just on an 8-night. And then while we're talking about other cruise lines really quick, I'll just say if somebody wanted to go to Bermuda in the summer, because I almost think that's like their peak tourist season because of the weather and everything there, Celebrity does offer a cruise in the summer. Like they have it for this year, they have it for next year already, where they're going June and July this year, or May, June and July. So if you are a person that needs to travel in the summer and wants to go to Bermuda and, can't take kids out of school where during Disney sailings, that might be something to consider.
I know a lot of other cruise lines stay in Bermuda for 3 days, which sounds pretty cool.
NCL goes there as well. I've definitely sold that cruise for clients before. It's typically on an older ship, so that's always something to keep in mind, but still a good option.
Actually, when we left, like Tim mentioned, Celebrity was there when we got there.
Norwegian.
Because a different ship was there the next day. So the extra dock switched out. And I think I have a picture. I'm looking at this picture I took because it's a Norwegian Prima.
That's the newest ship.
Yeah, it's super new. And I took a picture of it because it has this like 20-story slide. And I was going to ask Christy about it because it's just crazy. But yeah, so the super new Norwegian ship was there when we left.
Christy's the person to ask to about slides. She's always up for a good water.
That's what I figured.
I'm just going to hurry up and go down a slide.
I mean, the slide from deck 13 down to 4 seemed right up Christy's aisle right there.
Mm-hmm.
I see your daughter going on and hating it.
I push her down that thing.
Okay.
I know Dave didn't even go. Dave likes thrill rides, and he did not go on the Wonder of the Seas on that like 7-deck slide that they have off the back. That was too much.
Since we have you guys here, before we finish up, how about Fort Lauderdale? You guys have all cruised out of Port Canaveral several times. Amber living in Florida, easier to get to Port Canaveral than Fort Lauderdale. What are you guys' thoughts about going down to Fort Lauderdale and cruising out of there? Tim, have you thought about it at all?
Really haven't at this point yet. I mean, it would be nice to try different, locations other than Port Canaveral out of Florida, but it's maybe at some point, but I'd rather sail out of San Juan if given that opportunity again.
How about you, Amber?
I mean, yeah, I'd rather drive 1 hour versus 4 hours. So if something better be super cool out of Fort Lauderdale to get me down there. Although that train's opening up soon, so I would be interested in this train scenario down to Fort Lauderdale.
So Brightline is starting, I believe, in May from Orlando. And so that is going to definitely be an option. We'll certainly cover it once we get a little more information on it, get some pricing. It's supposed to be beautiful, though. I mean, like I've seen some pictures on their social media. It looks amazing.
Okay, 2 more questions. Amber, we cannot end this episode without you giving your review of the French fries on board the Fantasy.
Yeah, they were excellent, per usual. So they're keeping up their standards.
That's good to know. And Tim, did any food stand out for you at all? Anything that you enjoy when you get on board?
No, except we did notice that the main dining room quality seemed to drop a bit. During the COVID times, it seemed to increase dramatically with the lower capacity, and wondering if the higher numbers, like it's a little cooler coming out. We made a comment to our waiter about it, and they obviously went through things. I will say this wait staff, especially compared to the Wish, was a lot less harried and much more relaxed, enjoyable. It just seemed like, especially on the Wish and even on the Dream last year, they felt very much under pressure. We didn't get that impression at all this time. So that was nice.
Well, guys, thank you so much for coming on. But before we finish up, I want to give you both an opportunity for just some final thoughts on this cruise, something we didn't touch on, or just Bermuda in general. Tim, why don't we start with you?
like I said, it's probably one of our favorite stops ever. And having the 2 nights or 2 days there, one night was fantastic. No real other thoughts outside of like, okay, 8 days and now overnight in a port. In the follow-up customer survey, they did ask about if we'd be interested in some other overnight stops. I can't remember. One was Hawaii, was they were going to be there till 7 if we would be interested in that, a port stay till later. And of course we said yes to that. And asking about if interested in Bermuda and one other location that was new, if we'd be interested in 2 days there. And we said, most definitely.
And how about you, Amber? Final thoughts about Bermuda?
Yeah, 100% what Tim just said. This is my second cruise in a row where we've overnighted in a port. And I'm just like, why are we always overnighted? Like, obviously there's a reason, and I'm not smart enough to know what that reason is. Like, I guess money is the reason. But like, I would be paying that money, right? Like,
Right.
It's not like the cruise line's paying it. I would just pay more money. I was going to say Bermuda really gave off like North Shore Oahu vibes to me, where it's just like very chill. And I have to think about it. It's by far my new favorite port, like hands down, easily my favorite. So I'm actively looking to get back there somehow.
Those are big statements. I love it. So as we get out of here, where can we find you guys next? We'll just keep going back and forth. Tim, where are you and your beautiful bride headed to next?
We're very excited about it. For next one will be October on the first Trans-Pacific from Honolulu to Sydney. So that is our big one that we're still, now I'm really getting into the planning stage for that because that's taking a lot more effort. So that's going to be our next big cruise.
Talk about figuring out what to do on a sea day.
Yes, I think it's 13 nights and there'll be 8
Like,
sea days in there.
Yeah. 6 though, right? Right in the beginning or something
Yeah,
like that?
5 or 6 right in a row.
Amber would die.
I can't even like put that into words. I have nothing coming up,
What?
which is devastating. I did do like 2 in a row. We did spring break and then this. Like, we hadn't even unpacked from spring break before we came to this one. So like, this was wildly unnecessary. But it was Bermuda. It was the one Bermuda. We had to jump on it, obviously. But I'm dying to get back on the Wish. So I'm going to patiently just keep trying to get onto the Wish somehow with some Florida resident deals. See what happens.
I got 2 sailings coming up this fall. You need to join me on one of them. Hopefully it works out.
I do. Dying.
No pressure.
All right.
Well, you guys, thank you so much for coming on. It was a pleasure talking with both of you guys about Bermuda and the fantasy. Love the fantasy. And thank you so much, Tim, for all your support over the years with our show and podcast. Really do appreciate it. And to you as well, Amber. Thank you thank you so much for all the work you do with our Instagram account. We really do appreciate that. It means a lot.
All the fun and funny stuff on Instagram, just so you know, is from Amber. So let's just make sure that is out there, that everybody knows. Steve now posts occasionally, and that's fine. And I post very like straightforward information, and that's fine. But good, clever, fun, all Amber.
I mean, people need the straightforward information as well. So that's high quality stuff.
Thank you, Amber.
They do.
But I'll definitely post some Bermuda stuff whenever this show airs, goes live. I'll bombard Instagram with some Bermuda photos.
Well, you guys, thanks again so much for coming on today. We really do appreciate it. Wish you all the best as we head on into the summer season. I can't believe it's coming on May here just pretty soon, and June's going to be right around the corner. So all the best to you guys and your families, and I look forward to talking to you soon, and hopefully maybe seeing you someday on the ship. So thanks again for coming on. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show today. Once again, I really want to thank Tim and Amber for coming on and sharing their family's experiences as they sailed on the beautiful Disney Fantasy out of Port Canaveral up to Bermuda. And taking a look at it, there are several Bermuda cruises in 2023 still available. Most of them are out of New York on the Disney Dream. They run from October on into November, featuring Halloween on the High Seas and I believe some very maritime cruises as well, although I'm not sure about that November cruise. They also have one cruise on the Disney Fantasy coming up. It's an 8-night cruise featuring stops in Bermuda, Castaway Key, also Nassau, Bahamas, and that one leaves on September 9th if anybody's interested. As always, we'd like to give a huge shout out to our Patreon supporters. They help bring this show to you each and every week ad-free. If you'd like to find out more how you can support our show via the Patreon program, you can go to patreon.com/DCL podcast and find out all the information there. Also, we'd like to give a huge shout out to all of you who have gone over to Apple Podcasts and left us a review. It's pretty easy to do. And Cruiser Jeff said, "This is one of the most insightful podcasts on DCL. I've been on several DCL cruises, but I've always learned something from this podcast. Great hosts, great guests, great podcast." Thank you so much, Cruiser Jeff. And thanks to all of you who've taken time to go over there and leave us a review. That helps this show get a little bit better known in the Disney cruising, the Disney podcasting, and just the cruising podcasting community in general. We've got quite a few reviews, and if you have time to do so, we sure would appreciate it. Well, we are at the beginning of the summer. I know a lot of you are out there traveling, whether you're headed out on an Adventures by Disney, a Disney cruise, headed out to the park somewhere, or just spending time with family and friends at one of our national parks or someplace else. On behalf of myself, Steve, Christy, Nova, Lake, and everybody else here at the DCL podcast, we want to wish you to be well, enjoy time with family and friends, and we'll see you next time on the DCL podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
The DCL podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.